another episode of Getting Hammered. I am your host, Mary Katharine Ham. I'm here with my co-host, Vic Mattis, over Washington Free Beacon. We're your morning show for any hour, and boy, is there a lot going on today. We are taking it back with some Biden health news, but we've also got new Biden health news, which means we have new Biden cover-up news. So we'll get to all of that. We want to play a little bit of the Her tape, which is finally released. Maybe touch on the big, beautiful bill a tiny bit. And James Comey's gotten himself into a little bit of a pickle. Love that guy. But before we get to all of the news, Vic, how's it going?
Hello, Mary Katharine. I was just thinking, now that we're going to be talking about a lot of health news today, that it's basically like one of these NBC News for Your Health segments, but for 45 minutes. In which case, we could have had a sponsor like ivermectin.
Oh, smart.
Yeah.
Smart.
Or that new one, the one where the guy takes the pill now. Is it called Blue Chew? Is that what it is? Is that what it's called, Phil? Blue Chew? Yeah. Type it into your Google search under your own personal, account, and you'll get some interesting ads. I wanted, all this time, I always wanted an ad from Nugenics, the one that Frank Thomas Big Hurt does. Thank you, yes. Because he's massive already.
Right.
And he needed to get more massiver.
For sure.
And as if that's not enough, because it's really to give you energy. But if you didn't get the hint, in the commercial, he's doing a quote-unquote press conference, and then he says, and ladies, you'll love it too.
Nice.
Yeah, and then the reporter's like, ooh, that's good.
We're going there early today,
Yeah,
folks.
we are. Well, that's the way it is for many reasons. One of the things I just have one thing, Mary Kath, and I just have one thing, which is, coming up here to our beautiful studio in the elevator news.
Love elevator news.
Love elevator news. I love it because it makes me crazy, and sometimes I want to destroy elevator news. They're mindful, of course, that May is AAPI month.
Yes.
Happy month.
Yep.
I don't remember seeing much about Jewish Heritage Month, which it shares the month with. We have to share the month. As you know, June is coming, and already there's talk, because it's Pride Month. It's going to be LGBTQ, IA2S plus and more. But they're already creeping into the end of May. It's happening now.
For sure.
Also,
that's for the visibility.
Yes, that's
Vic.
right. And to get
there
you to the right mindset.
has to be visibility.
That's right. So on my way up in the elevator, they had a celebration of AAPI people, mostly women,
right?
Asians. And then they had Donna Shalala, the first Lebanese American cabinet member for the Asian American Pacific Islander Month.
Okay.
Does that really count? Middle East?
Middle East?
Really? Asia Minor. Asia Minor counts. Really.
That's such good Asia shade. Asia on Asia shade.
It's not Asia. I understand the continent.
I believe they call that Asia Minor.
Yes. Yeah, I just did that, by the way. It's not major, and it's not the islands. I just think that was a bit too much for me.
You put a little Kendrick Lamar spin on the Asia fight. The intra-Asia fight.
I did.
Asia Minor.
I stuck that in there, and that's right, minor. I'm right here. When I look at it, I say to Elevator News, I'm right here. You've run out of Asians to cover, to celebrate. I'm right here.
When I was a child, I think because of my dad, we were just goofing in the house. We called her Donna Shalala.
Shalala, yes.
Which I'm sure is offensive. I'm sorry. You know what? For me to do that during AAPI month is a travesty.
She could be like, I don't know, if there's a month for the vertically challenged, that would be her month too. So anyway, I welcome my fellow Asian, Donna Shalala.
There you go.
Okay, great.
You're right.
How are you?
I'm good. We had a milestone this week for our family, which is that my oldest had her acting debut.
Whoa, on stage?
On stage at her spring musical at her school, which is a privilege of the third through 6th graders at her school. If you're in her school, they split it up. The K through 2 get the Christmas concert, and the older kids get the more sophisticated spring musical.
Okay.
Their music teacher is very serious about her work.
Good.
She gets great work out of the children. The musical is about an hour long, And every year that I've seen it, I've been pretty floored. Like this is impressive work for 3rd through 5th graders.
May I ask, what was the show?
Yes, it was called "Oh Chicken of Little Faith."
Okay.
And it's like they go to a Christian school. It's a parable, a barnyard
lovely.
focused parable. Very, very sweet. The songs are all praise songs. Beautiful, adorable children singing out about Jesus. I cry from the very beginning. Anyway, my daughter has been trying out for several years for this musical. Now, you always get to be in the choir, but you don't necessarily get a speaking or singing, a front-facing part because there aren't that many of them.
Yes.
As you might imagine, in a rather like a medium-sized play that involves young children. You don't want so many moving parts.
No, it's a lot.
So there's really like only a handful of parts. So she's been pretty heartbroken in the past that she didn't get something. And I told her, look, you're in 3rd grade. You're at the beginning of this journey. Yeah. Just keep your eye on the ball and keep trying out. And this year she tries out. So this is her 3rd try.
Yes.
And she says, I said, how did it go? And she said, well, I tried out for there's like basically a Greek chorus of giant chickens.
Okay, of course. You need the chorus.
And
tell you what's
that
going
are sort
on.
Of your guides through this parable.
Yeah.
And she's trying out for one of them, whose name is Scrambles. And there's a lot of egg puns.
Those egg puns. Oh, man. I would have loved to help write that one.
Excellent.
Would have been exceptional.
So she's trying out for one of the chickens. And she tells me when she comes home, like she thinks it went pretty well. She thinks her teacher liked it. And that many people who watched the audition were like, you're that chicken. Like, you should be that chicken. And I told her, she was getting pretty excited about it. And I was like, well, let's not count our chickens before they hatch. But I was like excited for her because she really felt like she did a nice job. She got the part. And we're talking like 2 or 3 months of rehearsals. They have been working very hard.
Does she like did you get the vibe from her that she enjoyed the quote unquote hard work?
So it's hard to tell with her. And sometimes she wants me to help her with things, and sometimes she wants mom to back off and she wants to do her own thing. It felt like in this case she didn't want to be handheld on this, and I was gonna run through the script with her, but she kept telling me she had it under control. And because her teacher's very serious, I was like, if there's an issue, her teacher will let me know that she needs some help with this. But I knew she had a lot of lines, so I was like, ooh. Anyway, they're working very hard. We're talking, there's 2 rehearsals a week for several hours at a time, so they got a lot of run-throughs on this. She was fantastic. She was expressive. She was funny. She was enunciating. She was loud enough for everyone
That's key,
to get
is
it.
the loud enough.
Yeah. Well, now they were all Britney mic'd. Because like I tell you,
that helps.
This was a serious production.
Yeah, that's good.
She had a fantastic outfit on. She told me her costume was cool. And it's like, okay, look, she's playing a giant neurotic chicken. So she's got like a jean jacket with feathers, pink feathers glued under it. It's very avant-garde.
Yes.
What do you call it? The thing on the top of their heads?
A comb
on the top of her head. Like a sparkly dress and some tennis shoes. Anyway, the whole look was fantastic. She was giving it flourishes. She's flinging those feathers all over the place. I was very proud of her. She was on cloud 9. I think she has probably found a new passion. And it was so cool.
It's very fun
to watch her take it and just say, I am handling this. And she handled it.
She will, I guarantee you, she'll want to be involved in the next one and the next one, and maybe even in high school doing, being one of those drama kids. Because, there's the cast party, there's the getting ready before the curtain goes up.
It's cool. She got to wear makeup. Yeah. She was excited about that.
Oh, sure. Everyone, extra special makeup because you got to be seen from a distance.
Yep. She was excited. She was very funny. Her comic timing was great.
Yeah.
Got a lot of laughs in there. So anyway, very cool to watch her. I thought I was going to be so nervous. And this is the best compliment I can give a performer is because I do get very sympathetically nervous for other people. I don't mind being on stage at all, clearly. But I get nervous for other people, particularly people I care about.
Yeah.
And she was so confident and so good.
She didn't
have
that
feeling. From the second she started speaking, I was like, she's got it.
No, that's my daughter. My daughter always loved performing on stage. Yeah. She's very excited to. I'm excited to show you what I can do.
Yes.
Just remember, as I always told her, in the great words of Larry Miller, no small parts.
Yep.
Play your part like it's the main part.
Yep. And she played it big. It was cool to see her really lean into it. So
well, it's also very.
It's hard not to lean into a giant neurotic chicken. Like you got a lot of
no.
room
I mean, there's
move there.
There's a lot of possibilities. The other cool thing, and I was never really involved in theater except for that one time, as some listeners remember, where I was one of the twins in The King and I, because I happened to match the casting needs.
AAPI month.
That was, speaking of AAPI month, shall we dance? Anyway.
I was once a munchkin in The Wiz, and I did not meet the casting needs.
Not the Wizard of Oz.
Nope, The Wiz.
The Wiz.
I think I was just an understudy. I don't think I ever made it on stage.
Great movie. I saw it.
Yeah, that was
with Diana Ross.
That was a reverse cast situation.
That was for you, yes.
Just for me.
Yes,
yeah.
it was.
The rest of the cast was what the cast required.
Yes, that's right. But you know what? What's really cool? What these kids do now, in these productions, they'll have their own mini version of Playbill.
Oh, do they?
And
really?
they hand them out. And so you get because you want to have a little bit of a
Yeah, I got to frame her.
Yeah.
Her program for her.
That's very exciting.
It was very cool to see.
Yeah. I mean, own it.
I was never a performer in elementary school or like even into high school. Our theater program in high school was very, very good. I was in the band, so I played in the pit for a couple of musicals.
Oh, you were down there.
And it was actually very fun. It is a very unsung job.
Oh, sure.
All you get is that very end where the whole cast goes.
Oh, right. They do that.
Points down.
Well, you have to watch this on YouTube to see Mary Katharine gesturing to the orchestra pit, which is what they do. That's what they do.
After they've gotten their plaudits, they gesture down to the sad band nerds that are down in the pit, and you go, yes, this is our moment, and nobody can see you. So that's what I did. I later realized that I enjoyed public speaking, but that was long after high school. It took till college.
That's where you, that's your start.
Anyway, I did direct a play when I was in first grade.
Oh, it's funny you just happened to forget that.
Yeah. I was in first grade.
Yes.
Directed Cinderella, a production of Cinderella.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm intrigued. Okay.
This was like in our schools. I sort of did a well, let's just say that Durham City Public Schools were not high performing when I attended them in the 80s. And that one of the things that meant was that a lot of times I would sort of be sent off on my own to do kind of an independent study as a first and second and third grader in some ways.
Sent on your way.
And this was actually smart. The teacher who had other students that she was working with was like, you three go and take on this independent project, and then the whole class will eventually get involved with it. And so we wrote and directed a version of Cinderella. Yeah.
I would also recommend to listeners, if you haven't seen the movie Waiting for Guffman, the Christopher Guest movie, it's fantastic, about where the small town thinks that the critic from New York is coming in, and so they, Blaine, Missouri. I mean, it's a little bit, making fun of, but it's so funny, and there's a great scene during auditioning for roles, and it's Catherine O'Hara and Fred Willard.
Love her.
So look into that in YouTube, because they do a thing called Midnight at the Oasis, and when they're doing well, portraying like people a notch lower than them trying to act. Right. So I mean, they can act very well, but they're doing one step lower. One of the little nuances, and there's so many little treats in this movie. One of the little nuances in this particular scene is when Fred Willard is delivering his line in front of Corky and the other judges.
Yeah.
Catherine O'Hara is mouthing his lines, because people will do that. You ever know? You run into people when you're talking and their mouths are moving.
Yeah, I would do that.
Yeah, it's
I
really
can see me doing that 100%. Okay, let's do the actual news.
Oh, let's do this.
I would like to apologize in advance if we spend the entire episode talking about Biden.
We don't intend to, but
he's not currently the president. I'm well aware of that. Yeah. I know that Democrats would like me to
move on,
look forward.
Move on.
Yeah, we're talking about the future, not the past.
J.B. Pritzker.
But we are going to talk about the past and the present, it turns out. So a couple things are happening at once. Alex Thompson, who wrote this book with Jake Tapper called Original Sin that comes out this week, that, of course, has had this big rollout. We've talked about that. The things that have been coming out about that book, some of which we had seen, some of which are quite a bit more detailed at this point. On Friday, the day our last episode came out, Thompson and Axios published the Hur tapes.
Yeah.
The Robert Hur tapes. This was the guy who spoke to, the attorney, excuse me. This is the guy who spoke to Biden about his classified documents issue. There was, was he a special counsel?
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Who spoke to Biden about this, and in his report said he's basically a forgetful old man. I can't really charge him or get a conviction because I don't think
outrage.
I don't think the jury would see him as
how
anything
could you
but
say
like
that?
a forgetful old man.
Yeah.
Now I'm paraphrasing, but that was basically what it was. And everyone went after Robert Hur, longtime career respected guy, and said he is just doing this for political reasons. He is smearing the great Joe Biden.
That's right. In February 2024.
Right. And it turns out, no, he wasn't smearing him. If anything, he was chiller about it than he should have been. And actually, we should just play a little bit of the Hur tape, even though it is very uncomfortable.
And there were documents related to the Penn Biden Center or the Biden or the cancer donor shot or your book. Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on?
Well, I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period, except the president. It's not a mean thing to say. I mean, he just thought that she had a better shot of winning the presidency than I did. And so I hadn't at this point, even though I'm at Penn, I hadn't walked away from the idea that I might run for office again.
Okay. That's only a minute and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Of that.
It got worse too.
So just for the record, and you've heard this before in the reporting on this, Beau Biden died in 2015.
Right.
It's not the era that he's talking about. It's actually pretty far off.
Yeah.
And one would think he might remember that because 2015, the reason he cited for not running for president was that his son had died, which was a perfectly reasonable decision to make, that he didn't want to put his family through that at that moment. But those two things were linked. So you know it was in 2015 because the race was in 2015 and 16. He doesn't know that.
They correct him and say it's 2015, and then he reverts back to the 2017-18 timeframe again. He also says that the president, which is not the president at the time, was telling him not to run. Obviously, it was Trump in 2017 or 2018. Here's the most important thing about this particular segment, Mary Katharine, which is Biden later on, after her decision is made and that statement comes out about him being this old man who is, very likable, but, completely unaccountable. Biden takes to a nighttime press conference, not a press conference, but, a special appearance on television, right? He makes this announcement, which is unusual for him to do something in the evening from the White House on camera, and says on the spot live, how dare he brought up my son's death. That did not happen. And everybody jumped on that they jumped on that bandwagon to say, yeah, that's right. How dare Robert Hur do that? And poor Robert Hur then has to, he just takes it until he has to go before the panel in Congress, congressional panel, and he gets a barrage of attacks.
Hur was incredibly kind and dignified through this entire thing. When I would have flown off the handle.
Yeah, on the spot, I would have just said, full stop. I did not bring it up. He did. We have audio.
This is a characteristic attack on her at the time from Tommy Vitor, a former Obama aide who's now Pod Save America guy. Hers claim that Biden couldn't remember the day his son died was an outrageous lie. It's also cruel and irrelevant. Anyone who has experienced loss like that can remember images, smells, bit of conversations. The pain is burned into you. Dates blend together because they're irrelevant. As a person who's been through a significant personal trauma, I feel like I have some standing to say I do remember the year that happened. I'm quite clear on that.
Yeah.
Maybe the order of events sometimes
Right.
gets a little hazy.
I'll cut him some slack.
But the point being,
Yeah.
the idea that this was some cruel fraud, outrageous lie, that her was doing something political and partisan in nature is just nonsense. He was probably being nicer than he should have been. And they're not apologizing to him, by the way, which they should be doing in mass.
Yeah,
they should
he's
be
owed
saying,
that.
sorry we smeared you, Robert Hur.
Yeah.
Because, let me say this very clearly. If you listen to even 4 minutes of this tape, it is so clear this man should not be president.
Yeah, and forget about running for re-election.
Just at
he
the moment.
He should not be president, and who's making the decisions day to day, and who's protecting him. And we know that the inner circle with Dr. Jill and Hunter and Mike Donilon, right?
But by the way, Tommy has a follow-up, which I will read so you get a taste of what this is like. Some of the better sort of recalibrations.
Yeah.
But it's not an apology. He says, I found the context about the Hur report to be some of the most interesting revelatory information in Original Sin. At the time, Hur's comments about Biden being a, quote, elderly man with a poor memory seemed like Jim Comey-style inappropriate editorializing about a non-charging decision. However, the book made me realize how important that context was for Hur in explaining his decision not to charge Biden. And I now feel that many of the attacks on Hur, including by me, weren't totally fair.
Wow.
Huge concession. I still think the piece about whether or not Biden remembered the date of Bo's death is complicated. Clearly, Biden was experiencing cognitive decline. The debate proved that, but our memories work in weird and different ways. My memory doesn't organize stuff around dates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The just released audio, he goes on to say, clearly shows a guy who should not be running for re-election. Okay, so at least we got that. Mm-hmm. It also shows a man who is exhausted because the October 7th attacks just had happened, and the broader context is very scary and politically devastating. The law enforcement interview, he says, is politically devastating. What's politically devastating and morally devastating, October 7th had just happened, and this is the president we had.
Yeah, that's right.
That it's not that he's exhausted from doing the hard work of the presidency.
Right.
What's shocking is that he couldn't do the hard work of the presidency quite clearly, and we were in a crisis situation.
Also, sort of an excuse
with a very close ally, and there were Americans involved.
Yes, that's right. And hostages until recently were there. That's the big problem. Is it's not. They're trying to cut him some slack by saying, "Oh, it was after October 7th, so I'm sure he was really tired and exhausted." Well, that's the job.
Yeah.
He's being president of the United States.
It makes it worse.
Yeah.
And speaking of making it worse, Vic.
Yes.
You noted that he said post her interview. There was no tape release because they knew that this would be devastating.
Yeah.
So there was a transcript but no tape release.
Yeah, it was his Justice Department, so obviously they're not releasing that.
Merrick Garland could have seen this and been like, ooh, if we're not going to 25th Amendment this guy, we probably should figure out another way to torpedo him.
Yeah.
No.
If they heard that, there'd be a real call for that.
Yeah. So the public didn't need to know about that.
Yeah.
So we didn't get the tape until now when he's irrelevant. But you noted he said the other guy brought up Bo.
Yeah.
He uses Bo, whose death is tragic, of brain cancer after he comes back from many years after he comes back from Iraq when he's was he deputy attorney general? He was the attorney general of Delaware. At any rate, tragic death, but he uses that as a shield against this political fallout.
That's his fallback.
Yes. And that is relevant because you'll see a pattern emerging, Vic.
Yes, coming up.
Which is that the Biden family announced on the day that the Hur audio finally broke.
Yes.
They announced that he has stage 4 metastatic prostate cancer.
Yeah, it's very serious.
Which is very serious and very sad.
Yeah.
It has gone to his bones, which is anyone who has had experience with cancer knows is not great. It can be treated, but the treatment's probably hard, and I wish him the best, and I want him to make a full recovery, right? Yeah. All of that. But I think they made it worse. I think they thought that if we say he has cancer, no one will be able to talk about original sin.
That's right.
Just as when Her was questioning him about classified documents, he brings up Bo,
right,
not Her, because his reflex is to lean on his significant personal tragedies, and they are real.
Yeah.
And there are many of them.
Yeah.
The loss of his wife and daughter, the recovery of his sons, which he had to single parent for a while.
Yeah.
The addiction struggles of Hunter.
Yeah.
The loss of Bo. Like, these are all real things. The cancer is a real thing, but he does use them to get himself out of political jams. And I think this is what this was. And it raises the question, prostate cancer, something easily and routinely screened for, that is usually slow moving, got to stage 4 metastatic in the last 5 months?
Yeah.
Since he left office? I don't believe it.
So it's unclear from the statement how long they've known this.
Well, I believe they said he was told on Friday. So that's, if they're
if you want to parse that,
could it be that he just found out?
Yeah, he just found out. Right. So, I mean, it's very carefully crafted.
I put nothing past his family at this point.
And that happens sometimes where they say, do you want to tell Dad that this is happening, or whoever, I mean, it's a very sensitive subject in cancer, as you mentioned. And it's terrible for him because, the prognosis in some cases for somebody in this situation could be 12 to 18 months, right? I mean, it's very serious. There's no way that they all just discovered this over the weekend or last week and then decided to make the news when they made the news, because that would be a pretty bad doctor who said, well, let me give you a prostate exam, and you find the nodule and say, whoops, you have stage 4 and it's in your bones and it's metastatic right now, because this isn't pancreatic cancer. I know all about that. Right. And it's fast, and the survival rate, the 5-year survival rate is not good.
Right.
I mean, in my mother's case, I think she, went on for maybe 9 months. I mean, it's fast. This is prostate cancer. A lot of older men, in fact, can have it for many, many years, and it can go untreated for many years. But they're aware of it, and they monitor it to see how it progresses. So
Well, and even without an actual physical examination, it's part of a blood panel.
Yeah,
I mean, you take the PSA level is what they call
level,
it.
That's right.
So it would be even without, you could do it in a very non-invasive way.
That's right.
And Nicole Sapphire, who's a doctor who comments on Fox frequently, said as recently as 2021, they were doing a PSA screening on him. So, and you got to believe this guy is frequently monitored.
Yeah. He's the president of the United States.
He's the president of the United States. And then I think a problem for Democrats and the Bidens is that a lot of doctors have come out to say, this doesn't smell right.
Yeah.
This doesn't seem correct.
I mean, they're giving just a little bit of wiggle room to say maybe this is an extremely terrible, aggressive form of prostate cancer.
Right.
But odds are this is something that they've known for a while. And that includes Dr. Zeke Emanuel, Obama's doctor, as you know, who said on Morning Joe that Biden has probably had this for years.
Right.
Meaning that he had it when he was president. And don't forget, he was giving that press conference by the bridge in 2022, and he mentioned that he had cancer.
Yes.
And people said, no, he's talking about the skin cancer.
Yeah, this is him. This is Zeke Emanuel, as you say, on MSNBC, spreading these kinds of outrageous conspiracy theories. Let's hear it.
You're an oncologist, obviously incredibly respected. You believe that it is likely, just for those just tuning in, you believe it is likely if this prostate cancer has spread to the bone that he could have had it for up to a decade, but certainly it's likely. Would it be fair to say it's likely to have had this for at least several years?
Oh, more than several years. You don't get prostate cancer.
I just want to stop you. So this is not speculation. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you are saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah. He did not develop it in the last 100, 200 days. He had it while he was president. He probably had it at the start of his presidency in 2021. Yes, that I don't think there's any disagreement about that.
Well, that does seem like a problem. Here's what it does also. Is it now there are some doctors who say, yes, there is an outside possibility that he stopped being screened for this,
you age out of the
that
TSA.
It happened very quickly. But again, this is a very monitored person who's already in bad health. So you got to believe they're monitoring him very closely. And he was tested in 2021. But anyway, this blows up their justification for the dementia problem. Because what they say, what his lackeys and staff say is like, there was no diagnosis. There was no news to give. There was a diagnosis on this. And I think he was probably being treated for it.
Yeah.
Maybe while he was running. I think there's a significant possibility that he was being treated for this cancer while he was in office, and everybody was just like,
and there are very good treatments for this, and but some of them involve lowering testosterone levels, and that can create fogginess.
You don't say.
Yes. So, I mean, that is...
And stumbling, they
one
say.
issue. Right.
Yeah.
I think doctors on...
So you're telling me it's a stutter?
Yeah. Can we move on? I'm thinking about the future here, not the past. The Free Press had doctors on as well, or they featured them today. And they say that this is an issue of either incompetence or deception. It's one or the other.
Right.
Because... Dr. Emanuel is obviously right that, I mean, and my father-in-law's a urologist. I mean, these things develop over time, they don't happen suddenly. Plus, if you're getting screened, I understand he is of the age where he's aged out of the PSA, which is the prostate-specific antigen test, right? Not public service announcement, although we do need a PSA for the PSA.
Yeah. Actually, now we do.
Yes.
Now we have one.
Like in my age group, which is between 50 and 60, you should be scoring below the number 3.5. And I think for Biden, it's like below 6, right? So those numbers are there, and they would have known that. So either he had the cancer for a long time and he was not checked for it, or they knew.
Yeah.
But where does that put his doctor, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, in all of this? Because if he's the family doctor all this time, wouldn't he have known for some time? So I think they're not telling us unless he turns out to be like Dr. Nick, there's a Simpsons Dr. Nick, but I'm thinking about Elvis's doctor, Dr. Nicopolis, or, like the medical examiner in Jaws. That wasn't a shark, that was a boating accident.
Or Dr. Spachemin from 30 Rock is another good one. So, yeah, I think they're running into a problem here. This was a bad instinct if they thought it was going to get people off this story. It raises more questions for me because if this man was obviously cognitively declining, as we know he was, as early as 2020, and many of us flagged this stuff at the time. Yes, we couldn't make a diagnosis. Apparently, neither could his doctors of a specific form of decline. But it was very clear what was happening, and the books have made it much clearer that this was happening.
Right. Rather than thwart the rollout of Original Sin, it's actually enhanced it because it's part and parcel.
Well, and it makes you wonder, like, what was his family and staff thinking?
Right.
Because I don't think he had the faculties to make these decisions.
Right.
Responsibly, certainly. And someone was.
That's correct.
Both about whether he should run and what he was doing in office.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say, it's, blame the entire White House for covering up this particular health incident, because they could have kept that one a secret, but that would have easily been his wife, Dr. Jill, Hunter, and Mike Donnellan.
Right.
That's the inner circle. But then you can go beyond that and legitimately question, what did all of these people know, right down to any Democrat who visited him and then reassured us that he was doing great and that, they're sticking with him, for another 4 years. Yeah. Clearly that was not the plan. And everyone who says that we should just move on, the point of this is not just accountability, but reminding people, any of these people want to run for president again. You told us to trust you then. Why should we trust you now?
Or if any of them want another job. Karine Jean-Pierre should not be telling people publicly things for any company, for any politician, for any public figure.
But she's really good.
She should not run for office, which is like maybe that's her next step.
I misheard the fluttering of the
Oh
eyes.
my gosh.
Flutters the eyes.
By the way, I think presidents and public figures lose a little bit of their privacy when they consent to run for office. That's part of the deal. I think now presidents will probably lose more medical privacy because of this.
Right.
And I think Trump's pretty good at being transparent in general. I think maybe less so on the medical front, but I think that they should be sort of radically transparent about him now. Look, he's erratic in various ways, but he's always been this level of erratic. There's no decline.
Yeah,
happening.
you cannot tell me that the tweets or the truths have gotten crazier.
No.
Him, and they're awful. A lot of them are just awful and rude and but that is how he has always been. Like, you can go all the way back to the 80s or whatever. Art of the Deal. This has been the whole thing. Exaggerate a little bit, a little bit of shocking thing, shock them. People gave Trump's doctor Ronnie Jackson, now a member of Congress, a hard time because he gave him a clean bill of health, and people said that can't possibly be true. Look how fat he is. He still plays a lot of golf. Yeah. He requires very little sleep, and as we know from his trips around the world, he legitimately, we know, you don't have to pretend. I mean, he has a lot of energy.
Oh my gosh, he's just always on.
And he loves McDonald's. I do not think that behind the scenes, he's eating just salads, quinoa bowls, kale and quinoa bowls. I don't believe that.
Listen to that Robert Hur tape and then listen to Karine Jean-Pierre tell you with a straight face she can't keep up with him.
No, it's ridiculous.
Now, I do have such a low opinion of Karine Jean-Pierre at this point that perhaps cognitively she could not.
Oh, yeah. That's quite possible.
They could hang together.
But you could totally have seen, until the recent sort of shakeups going on with MSNBC, being spun off by its parent company, you could have totally pictured, and I was anticipating she would have her own show on MSNBC.
Right.
And they'd have a whole big rollout for her, and she'd be hosting it and asking all the tough questions. Jen Psaki's getting a hard time for this because people are saying this didn't just happen in 2023. 2020.
No, I don't think any of them are getting a hard enough time, right? If this were a Republican scandal, every single senator would have to be on every single Sunday show answering every question would be about this. Karine Jean-Pierre would be on every Sunday show. She would be being grilled. She's just taking her retirement over here. Nobody's bothering her.
No.
Jen Psaki's on a daily show. Is it a daily show?
Yes, except for Monday is Rachel Maddow, and her numbers. Her numbers are about our numbers, actually.
She gets paid a lot more.
Yeah.
But she has a daily show. She's not taking a bunch of guff for this.
Yeah.
It is really remarkable. I mean,
accountability and questions of complicity. That's what we want.
I think there need to probably be hearings. I'm not a huge fan of congressional hearings because they're not good at gleaning actual information because they're all a bunch of dumb preening narcissists.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a couple prosecutors in there and good public servants who could give this a go and ask some serious questions.
Right, because we have now ventured out of right-wing conspiracy theory into this is actually happening, and it happened, and really, who's making the decisions?
That's what I need to
know.
Right?
Is Jill Biden Edith Wilson?
I have not read Original Sin, but I've been looking at the reviews, hoping that someone would tell me that they cover who was doing the decision-making as president. But I think it's mostly here's what happened.
Right.
Let's not peek too far behind the curtain scenario.
And how we all tried to, basically they all tried to cover up and protect the president so we didn't see how he was behaving on a day-to-day basis. People who said it, like you and me, you're waved off as not credible. We're not going to take, even if you happen to be right, because of where we're coming from, because of our leanings.
Well, and it's always the same thing, right? It was always, if you wanted to go after Biden, and I find this so incredibly cynical and gross.
Yeah.
And this is why the cancer announcement, really got me. I know. Oh, hold on. Let me play Stelter for you for a second. he had this to say
man.
about the miraculous timing of this announcement.
How are people consuming this? How is it reaching people?
And, I'm seeing some prostate cancer survivors, people who have lived with this disease, who have been through this, expressing support, both condolences, but also support and cheering Biden on as he faces this. The timing, Jessica, is just extraordinary. We know from the statement from his personal spokesman that Biden learned of the diagnosis on Friday. Well, what was the biggest Biden story on Friday? It was the release of those audio excerpts from his conversations with Robert Hur back in 2023. This was the audio that Axios obtained, almost certainly from the Trump administration, showing memory lapses. And you heard a lot of people on Friday talking about that audio being hard to hear, even excruciating to hear. Biden showing his age on those audio tapes that had never been heard by the public until now. So on the day that story was breaking, Biden was facing this personal news. At least that's according to the statement from his personal spokesman.
Would you look at that?
I'll give Stelter some props for that. He's saying that the timing of, and here again, you brought this up earlier on the show, Mary Katharine, which is the timing of Joe Biden learning.
Yes, he did say Joe Biden learned of it Friday, which makes you wonder. How many people knew before Joe Biden did?
No, doctors will talk to family members and say, "Do you want to? We'll let you bring it up. We'll let you." And maybe they're like, "Yeah, we'll bring it up later."
Stelter in this clip is the most credulous man alive.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have one question about whether, this is just a coincidence that these two came out on the same day. And I know it's not a coincidence because, as I said...
Oh, so you're saying his extraordinary is being completely like...
No, he's like googly. You can hear it. Come on. I can play more of the clip.
No, please.
So you have that as one element of the timing here. And then you have, as you and Paul just acknowledged, this book coming out, one of the biggest political books in several years. Take out our colleague Jake Tapper for a second. This book, no matter where it was coming from, was going to be a very big blockbuster book. And it just so happens two of the best reporters in Washington, Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, are the authors of it. It's already a bestseller based on the number of pre-orders. And so this book comes out in 2 days, but some of the excerpts have already come out. And it's reignited this debate in Washington and beyond within the Democratic Party about Biden, about whether he should have run for re-election at all. So it seems to me, Jessica, this debate doesn't end at all, but it is briefly put on pause as a result of today's news.
No, it's not.
Oh, yes.
No, it's not.
Well, that was him and also David Axelrod.
He says it's put to rest. It's pausing because the timing is so extraordinary. It's as if God himself needed to deliver the Bidens from this.
A deus ex machina, if you will.
Yeah. But he doesn't consider that maybe this is being released, as Biden's family always does with personal tragedies. Point to the personal tragedy, get yourself out of a political jam. That's the way they do it.
It's funny because I interpreted that with him being sort of like saying, "Oh, it's rather curious."
No.
But no, he actually is like,
he is
sense of wonder curious.
100% earnest in
That's
this clip.
clearly depressing. But again, as I mentioned, David Axelrod also saying that muted. The criticism now needs to be muted. But there was a lot of pushback. And the original narrative of this, of course, is, well, get ready for the Republicans to pounce. And then other people started pouncing.
Yeah, like the doctors.
Like the doctors.
You guys don't believe the science anymore?
Yeah.
Are we rejecting the science?
Yeah. I mean, it is a question of when.
He learned.
Okay.
It beggars belief. It's just...
This is not over. And when the book comes out at the time that we're recording this.
And I think the next question is, our first question remains, who was making the decisions as president? Yeah. Second question, who will pay a price for it? Obviously, Biden's done. Yeah. I don't think he's getting any high-paying, consolation prize speeches anymore.
No.
I don't think any of those kids and grandkids are going to be living high on the hog the way they have been. By the way, did you see that Naomi Biden, one of the grandkids?
I saw her name pop up. What's going on?
She reviewed the...
She reviewed?
Tapper... No, just like a short review.
I should have published that.
She reviewed the Tapper Thompson book and called it Fairy Smut for Political Incentives, which I actually thought was kind of funny. It's like...
Fairy?
Look...
Fairy?
Fairy smut.
Interesting.
As in, just fictional.
Yes. Okay, but a little tawdry.
So just read a copy of this silly book, and if anyone is curious for a review from someone who lived it firsthand,
Yeah.
this is the grandchild who lived in
the White House.
And got married at the White House, which was her.
Yeah.
That was her MO. That's what she was in it for. This book is political fairy smut for the permanent professional chattering class, the ones who rarely enter the arena. Naomi Biden famously entering the arena.
In the arena.
By being a grandkid of a Biden who lives at the White House.
Yeah, one of the luckier grandkids.
On our time. Yeah. One of the recognized grandchildren.
Yeah.
But profit from the spectacle of those that do. Put simply, it amounts to a bunch of unoriginal, uninspired lies written by irresponsible, self-promoting journalists out to make a quick buck. It relies on unnamed, anonymous sources pushing a self-serving, false narrative that absolves them of any responsibility for our current national nightmare. All of this at the expense of a man so completely good and honest that it is impossible for these people to ever understand the why or how of it all. There are real stories to be told, and one day they will be. I suspect history will reward the truth. I think history is currently rewarding the truth.
Yes.
That's what I think is happening.
Tell me this is on X, and she's getting lots of comments.
Oh, it's on X.
Oh, boy.
And there are 2K comments, 4.7K retweets, and 19K likes.
This is what the kids call ratio right here for the ratio. Okay.
Anyway, I just like the idea of like, you're not in the arena. Naomi, you're not in the arena.
But she's also a disinterested party.
Yeah, totally.
And she's like, let me tell you what it's like.
At any rate, a man so completely good and honest, you can't even conceive of him.
No, and then again, the whole thing about the new defense of the media is that, you know what, some of us knew and spoke out, others tried to, but we got cowed and bullied into not.
Yeah.
Since when has the press been so cowed and bullied? You know, if this were Trump, they would, as if they would say, okay, sorry, we won't ask that again.
Had they dragged him over the finish line, they all just would have shut their mouths. None of this would have ever broken. Partly because how deeply did they not want Kamala Harris to be president? And I mean everyone.
Yeah.
I mean the entire White House staff, his whole family, and the press, because the press knew that she was the next step.
It was a two-edged sword for Biden, because on the one hand, it's like his lucky charm of, oh, you know, you want me gone, then you're going to get her. But then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I'm being forced out. You're going to get her now. I
think it's interesting that both Obama and Biden, people of disparate political skill, I would say, Obama much better than Biden in general, both made the mistake of picking a VP they didn't really want to succeed them.
That's right. This is what's interesting in comparison to George W. Bush, who picked Cheney, who scared the living daylights out of the left. So it's like nobody wanted to go after, God forbid, nobody's going to try to go after George W. Bush, because then you're going to get President Darth Vader.
Well, because of the age issue, this is what Biden would have been in Obama's mind, is like, you're a seasoned hand like Dick Cheney, who will not need to take the mantle of the party upon himself. Biden was like, nah, I got to do it. And I got to do it 4 years too late.
Yeah. And even though I promised I'm only going to do 4 years and be a bridge to the future, well, man, that time flies. Yeah. I'm not done yet.
I'm doing so much good stuff. Can I also just note one more time before we get to the punishment part of this, that COVID played a huge role in this, and the liberal need to signal that they were so pro-COVID protection and COVID regulations that they allowed the incoming and running president of the guy running for president of the United States to lock himself in a basement, not do interviews for the most part, do not a lot of contact with any voters. And then once he was in office, they used that to justify once again another year, 2 years of keeping him fenced off from everyone. And the press corps took it, A, because he's a Democrat, B, because they were all good libs who needed to illustrate that they were pro-COVID regulations and being very, very, very careful. Yeah. They couldn't be like us Neanderthals out drinking beers at a bar.
No.
In 2022. Huh. That's crazy talk.
2020, I was out there.
Oh, yeah, we were.
The diner's open. Metro 29, God bless them. They're like, you know what? We'll take a couple weeks off. They never succumbed to the QR code.
At one point, somebody tweeted me in 2020, like, basically, like, you go first and die. And I was like, oh, if the test of my bravery is whether I will go to Waffle House the second it opens, You will see me be the bravest woman you've ever seen. And I was. I was there in May.
Also,
I gave a big old tip.
Yeah, no, and do not deny the science, which means that when you go in, you better wear a mask until you get seated, because once you sit, at that level,
yeah,
like 3 or 4 feet, it's okay, but at
right,
5 feet, it's very dangerous.
It's very dangerous.
So.
Okay, so let's get to the cosmic political punishment for this
yeah.
Because
study.
Look, I don't know if there's going to be actual accountability through figuring out what happened during those years, or whether it will take place outside of just the public. Public chatter.
Yeah.
It might not. It might never move beyond that. It should go down in history as a huge presidential scandal. I hope that it
certainly of modern politics. Absolutely.
They're already, by the way, saying that that us alleging the cancer could have been known about sooner is a right-wing conspiracy theory. And I'm like, are you guys really going to run this play again?
Yeah.
You're going to run this play again.
We know how this works.
So anyway, if they keep doing that, it will not go well for them. But this is the Catalyst who gave their report first. It's a really comprehensive data analysis of 2024 voters. They gave that report in full to Amy Walter at Cook Political Report.
Yes.
I really enjoy the Cook Political Report. They do just like straight reporting, good stuff, just the numbers and the facts, ma'am. So Amy Walter reports on this. The Democrats are they're really going through it right now because the Biden stories won't stop. They don't know how to stop Trump, who, by the way, said that Biden he wished him well, and then he also said he has stage 9 cancer, and how could anybody not catch that? Stage 9,
that's pretty serious.
That's not what that is. Anyway, by the way, I did apologize that we were going to probably spend the whole episode on this.
Do you remember when I said 45 minutes news for your health? Okay. I didn't lie.
We got to do this. Okay. Let me read the subheads from Amy Walter's write-up on this, just to tell you how deeply the Democrats are being punished for their deception.
Okay.
What happened? Subhead number 1. The Obama coalition turned into the Trump coalition. Ouch. Subhead number 2. Men, especially men of color, shifted towards Republicans. Subhead number 3. Women didn't rally for Harris. That's like, okay, that's just a lack of enthusiasm. Wait, it gets worse. And Latino women moved right.
Yeah.
Younger voters, especially voters of color, shifted right. I mean, it is like their worst nightmare in numbers and words.
But maybe they should just, do not the exact opposite, but you remember like the autopsy that we talk about, and it turned out to be like the opposite of that recommendation. Mm-hmm. Maybe they'll just decide to lean in and have her in 2028, Kamala Harris, and that'll do it that time.
A lot of Biden voters stayed home. Again, unenthusiastic. That's not a huge like wound to the party. And new voters were the least Democratic ever. So new voters, young voters, voters of color.
Everything is
women of color, right. Latino women. Like this has got to be.
And their narrative,
dagger to the heart.
Yeah, their narrative is it's racist billionaire Republicans, white men.
It's the oligarchy
that's who voted for Donald Trump.
It's the oligarchy
so many of them
that made Latino women move right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of thoughts here.
Yeah.
One is, obviously, those are quite remarkable numbers, and they do have to grapple with that, even if they're never going to admit this actually happened. Right? Some of them will.
Well, they're still saying it's racism.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And then you look at the numbers, and it's like
they didn't want Kamala
guys.
because of her race.
Mm-hmm.
When in fact they were just not enthused, or she was not convincing them that she was, as other people like Tim Walz has said, the smartest candidate we have ever had for president of the United States, ever. They're just not buying that.
No.
And the idea that they spent $1.5 billion in campaign funds in the span of like 3 months.
Right.
To bring in all the celebrity endorsements, right? They had everybody. They had Beyonce, who didn't even perform. She just spoke. And Bruce Springsteen with his little acoustic number. And every popular, famous person George Clooney, Jimmy Kimmel, they're all there. Why aren't you voting? Don't you want to be like these cool people? No, they're not buying it.
No,
and
they're not.
They were trying to convince us that these are the most amazing candidates ever.
Yeah.
And who are you? They're all lying,
By the way, Matt Brunig flags one finding from Catalyst. women and people of color made up the majority of the Trump coalition at 57%. So misogyny, sorry.
Yeah.
Racism, sorry. Like, you can't make these arguments anymore. You also can't congratulate yourself and your great identity politics movement of the past 20 years, because what it should have done is made the lives of minorities and young people better, right? Yeah. That was the idea. That was the vision. That's always been the vision. Right. And they leaned into this identity politics. And I think what you're saying is correct on so many fronts. People were like, we're not buying it.
No.
We're not buying that this philosophy gets us anywhere good.
Yeah.
We're not buying that Biden is healthy. Right. We're not buying that COVID is super dangerous to little children, and that's why we have to keep schools closed for 2 years.
Right.
We're not buying it.
Yeah, or that you have our best interests at heart when you want to do things like defund the police or prevent charter schools from being in my neighborhood or whatever it is, because you're not actually living there.
Yeah, I think this has got to be disconcerting for Democrats. Yeah. And as you say, the autopsy from post-Romney, Trump ended up doing the exact opposite thing. And not the exact opposite, but he spoke, what he did actually was not treat people terribly differently and be kind of the same authentic jerk face to everyone, showman to everyone, convince people that all those other people were frauds.
Right.
They helped him significantly because, as I said, these guys lost a character argument to Donald Trump, and they deserved to.
Yeah, right.
They deserved to.
Again, and he came off as the quote-unquote normal candidate because the other ones could not decide on how many genders there are or whatever it is.
It was a problem.
It was very effective. Now, here's one problem moving forward, though. I think that this is uniquely Trump and that this coalition, I don't know how long that stays together in terms of what he won the entire blue wall. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned every demographic there, basically all shifting rightward, basically to him. He has this appeal to a lot of people. I think it's singularly him. So I don't know what Republicans should enjoy this moment, if you will, right now. But I don't know what's going to happen in 2028.
And as with the Democratic Party, because I think they're less strongly attached to Republicans than even they were to Democrats. These demographics, and so not taking them for granted is even more important. And the policies have to benefit them at some point. I don't think it's enough to say, and this is something Trump is very good at, it's not enough to say, I see you and I know what you're going through and I'm going to fight for you. Mm-hmm. Because if you fight for them in ways that don't get them the things, Obamacare comes to mind, and actually end up making things worse for some people.
That's right.
Then they will get mad at you. Uh-huh. COVID regulation's another one. Like, I'm fighting to protect you. And it's like, no, you actually made my life significantly worse. So if your policies don't do what they're supposed to do, you will run into trouble. We do not have time to talk about the big, not so beautiful
next
bill.
Episode.
But we'll have more information. The thing about the big beautiful bill is that all the parts are moving and we don't know what's going to happen.
We don't.
I think we have an announcement, do we not?
Yes, Mary Katharine, we do have an announcement. Go ahead. Why don't you make the announcement?
In this quickly shifting media environment, we have come to a crossroads here at Getting Hammered. After these many hundreds of episodes and 3.5 years on the mics, Vic and I must find a new home/way of doing this podcast. And don't want you guys to panic. We are talking to folks about where we might land in the future. Maybe we'll go indie. Maybe we'll find a platform. We might take some time to figure that out. While we're doing that, do not forget about us. In fact, I would like you to go to mkhammer.substack.com, get a free subscription, and I will put announcements there, mkhammer.substack.com. We have been really happy to have been able to do this podcast at Nebulous for 3.5 years. We have been really lucky in our support and producers, Alex, Jennifer, Colin, Phil, super funny, super helpful, super smart, all of them, and really helped the vibe at this show. We will not leave you without a taste test before we take a moment to figure out where we're going.
You're going to need a drink.
So join us for that on our next episode. We have a couple episodes left.
Yeah, so don't panic.
Before we might take a hiatus.
Don't get nervous, as I like to say to my friends.
mkhammer.substack.com. Get yourself a free subscription, and we will keep you updated there.
That's right. People are going to have a lot of questions. We can explain more as we go on this wonderful podcast journey. Again, it's not like the show per se is getting canceled. It's a very popular show.
With a very
it's
dedicated.
the network. It's the network. So that's the only thing. And so we have to find a new home. Or, I don't want people, Mary Katharine, you're right. I want to emphasize as well, don't panic. You will be fine, even if there's a little hiatus. I want you all to think about what happened. If you remember that very popular TV show in the early 2000s, Friends, when it came to an end, people said, where do we go? What do we watch next on Thursday nights? But there was Boston Common, Union Square, Joey. That wraps up this episode.
A veritable cavalcade
Yeah, those were all
success.
good shows. They were all good shows. The Single Guy. That wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube for now. You can follow me on Twitter at Victorino Mattis.
I'm at MKHammer on X, at MKHammerTime on Instagram. You can follow the show at Getting Hammered Podcast on YouTube and Instagram. MKHammer.substack.com. Stick with us. We'll keep you updated. Thanks for getting hammered responsibly. This has been a Nebulous Media Podcast.